Hello everybody, good morning. Welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news. Lots to get into this morning. We've got Ruben Amorim talking about how he's basically defeated. He has to change how he plays. He's got to change his values and principles, which is quite a big admission to make ahead of such a big game tonight. We'll talk about that, basically saying that he's coming to realise that he's just not going to get the players he needs to play the system he played at Sporting. What does that say about Manchester United and who takes responsibility for that? We'll talk about that. Also, Fabrizio Romano is giving two updates on Ruben Neves and Conor Gallagher. Talks ongoing with both of those two players. Will it become concrete? There is also updates on Toby Collier and Manchester United's activity in the January transfer window. We've got a few quotes coming in from Ruben Amorim, of course, because he did his press conference on Christmas Eve. But the second part of that came out late last night, Christmas Day night. So there's a lot of stuff to react to there, which is where he said this. Playing a perfect 3-4-3 requires a lot of money and time. I'm starting to realise that may not be realistic, so I may have to adapt. I mean, that is not what I want to hear from my manager on Christmas Day night. Playing my system requires a lot of money and time, and I'm starting to realise that may not be realistic, so I may have to adapt. Manchester United manager who's spoken to us about values, sticking to his values, his principles for the last 12 months, a year in, basically saying, I don't think it's realistic that I'm going to be able to build what I was brought here to build. If he's abandoning that, what does that mean? You know, so look, we'll get into that. I want to get into what Fabrizio said, a few other bits as well. But look, first of all, I hope you've all had a very good Christmas. The one day of the year I'm off, unless Man United gets sold, and I'd go live for that, definitely. It's the one day I do not do live content, Christmas Day. So I hope you all had a great day. I certainly did. I was zonked out at 8 o'clock last night, so there was no show going to happen anyway. But brilliant couple of shows we put up for you yesterday. Well worth watching the Ben Jacobs interview from yesterday morning. And also our best bits is always a good watch as well. So check those out if you're looking for something, because the TV schedules aren't necessarily that good. And we don't play till 8 o'clock tonight, where we will have the countdown to kickoff. We will have a fan forum and I will be live with the watch along. Huge game. Huge game. We have to win tonight. I mean, I look at that game and I think, you know what? If we were to get beat tonight, you can talk about whatever you want to talk about. You can talk about formations. You can talk about stadiums. You can talk about future planning. You can talk about everything. But the game tonight, don't let your turkey hangover and your laziness and your tiredness and the blur of Christmas take away from the fact that if this was being played in the middle of February, we would be pumping this up all week. It's a huge game that cannot be lost in the fact that it's Boxing Day. It's absolutely essential that we win this game. And I think as well, with no Bruno, it's also an opportunity for Amorim to show that he's not a bit one-dimensional. You know, I read something yesterday, because I'm sure we all go on social media a lot, Christmas Day afternoon. I saw something yesterday and somebody said, Amorim's had a really bad first year at Manchester United. Imagine how bad it would be without Bruno. And I thought, you know what? What a great observational piece that is, because it's not been good from Amorim this first year. The win ratio shows that. But where would it be without Bruno? So, you know, we listen to the club, we listen to the players, we listen to Amorim talk about the future and the plan and the vision, but we don't know what that vision is. We know the last year's been bad. But without Bruno, whatever you think about him, because of the goals and assists he brings, where would we be? So it's a fact that Amorim would be worse than he is over the last 12 months without him. So I think today becomes even bigger because we won't have Bruno. So we need to get a result. We need to get a result anyway. I mean, I look at tonight as an opportunity to kill Newcastle off. I look at the race for top 5, and at the moment, yeah, Villa, Liverpool, Chelsea, Man City, Arsenal. I think we're next in line. I think 6th place is probably, hopefully, where we can finish if we're not going to be in the top 5. But, you know, maybe we can get in the top 5. If we allow Newcastle back in, then we're making things more difficult for us. So we need to step up, as John said, absolutely. Okay, let's get into some of the news this morning then. I do want to talk about this Amorim comment about, you know, basically abandoning his system because there's no money and time to do it, which is shocking. But first of all, let's start off with some stuff coming out of the mouth of one of the number one transfer experts in the world, Fabrizio Romano. He was busy yesterday and he had this to say about Man United transfer targets. Manchester United remain in contact with Conor Gallagher's camp, but Madrid are still insisting on a permanent deal or nothing. Remember, we were talking about this with Ben Jacobs yesterday morning as well. So, look, we revealed this a couple of weeks ago from one of our sources that Man United had been in contact again with Conor Gallagher's intermediaries 2 weeks ago. We know that we were in contact in the summer. So that contact is there. The issue is going to be whether Atletico are willing to do a loan deal or lower their expectations, because they want a permanent deal in January. Man United don't want that. Now, look, honestly, I sort of look at this and I go, if we like Conor Gallagher, and it's not about whether you like Conor Gallagher, if we like Conor Gallagher, and we clearly do, because this is the second time in 6 months we've tried to go for him, if we like him, then why are we messing around with the loan deal anyway? Now, some of you won't agree with the deal, but we're talking about £25 million. And we're talking about an area of the pitch that needs more than 2 players. This is a complete and utter rebuild of a midfield in 6 months. And we haven't got anybody in yet. Casemiro, I heard what Amorim said about Casemiro, about his professionalism and he trains really well and all that lot. But he wouldn't commit about whether he's going to get a new contract. Look, Casemiro's been very good for Man United this season, but what I find an issue with Casemiro is his age. He's going to be 33 or 34 this year or next year, early next year. And we did have 18 months where he was shit. You know, people talk about his professionalism. He wasn't very professional in his last year under Ten Hag, and he might have had a reason for that, but he wasn't. So let's not forget that Casemiro can have crap games, because he can. Bruno is not a midfielder. Manu is not getting any game time and wants to leave. And Agate is struggling. You know, his career's sinking like the Titanic. So if we like Conor Gallagher, why are we messing around with the loan deal when, if we like him and he's been scouted well, we should just do the deal because we need 3 or 4 midfielders anyway? I'm a little bit confused as to why we will only do a loan deal when surely there's a loan with an obligation that we could do there as well. So I think United need to start acting like a football club and realising not everything falls in your lap. Look at what happened with Semenyo on Christmas Eve. We were in there, he's going to Man City. So we need to act a little bit better in relation to what we want to do. Now, the second story says that also Man United have contacted Ruben Neves' agent, George Mendes, to discuss a potential transfer to Old Trafford in January. So they're the updates from Fabrizio Romano, stating that both Conor Gallagher and Ruben Neves are the players that Man United are looking at. So The Athletic are saying this as well. Manchester United are prepared to be active in the January market, although incomings are only expected if they're able to accelerate the signing of a long-term target. And this is what Ruben Amorim had to say about the midfield in his press conference last night. Of course, we're going through a difficult period right now, but the club has a plan. We have a plan, and we're going to stick to it. If we get the opportunity to sign a player who we believe represents the club's future, he will come. Otherwise, we have Jack Fletcher, we have Lacey. In the 3 weeks, we'll have Ahmad, Mazraoui and Brian, and the return of Bruno and Kobe. So we will see. I mean, look, it's not the worst update in the world from Amorim. I think that, you know, that there seems to be this. I think what we look. I don't know how many people watched the video we did with Ben Jacobs yesterday, but I think what's clear now is that because we didn't get Semenyo, I think we will wait until the middle of the month. I think we're going to wait until the AFCON is over before we decide what we're going to do. I think we're going to wait till Bruno's back until we decide what to do. I don't agree with this, by the way. I don't agree with waiting to solve problems that are there in front of you. If your dog's shit in the kitchen, don't leave it till tonight. It stinks. It's disgusting. Get rid of it. But Man United just seem to be, you know, willing to put up with that smell for a little bit. We're not going to do anything until the back end of the window. I think there's 2 reasons for this. One, they're waiting to see what happens when people come back from the AFCON and whether that can be like a new signing. Because, you know, we've played this game before. You get to the middle of January, the 3 players come back, Bruno come back. They're like new signings. Then you get to the end of February, end of January, you don't do anything. So I think that's on their mind if they can survive January. And it's interesting that, you know, Ruben Amorim himself literally references that it's about, you know, can we get through these next few weeks? It's going to be a tough period, and, you know, almost hinting that we need to survive. Also, in the back half of the window, I think, you know, there are more opportunities potentially as people, you know, become more desperate to move. So who knows what Manu and Xerxes will do as well. So I'm not expecting Man United to do anything early in this January transfer window. If we're going to do anything, I think it'll be latterly. But Amorim has said a lot of times now the club has a plan. And I've just got to say this, right? I've got to do this. And I'm sure some of you are intelligent to have figured this out, what I'm about to say. When asked about transfers, he says, we're going through a difficult period right now, but the club has a plan. We have a plan, and we're going to stick to it. Okay? So he says the club has a plan. We're going to stick to a plan. And we're not, you know, we're basically not going to panic. But he then goes and says, in answering a different question, he says that playing a perfect 3-4-3 requires a lot of money and time, and I'm starting to realise that may not be realistic. So I may have to adapt. In the same interview. So he's asked about transfers, and he says, we're not going to deviate from our plan. We have a plan. We're not going to panic. And then a different question, he says, playing my system requires a lot of money and time. I'm starting to realise that I can't do that. And this is what I mean. You know, you want, as a fan, you want a consistent message. You want that vision. And I feel like it's a bit of a mixed bag at the moment because of the mixed messaging that's coming out from the football club. I mean, look, he gets asked about top four, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But look, all I want for Christmas is a win tonight, because it kills Newcastle off and it builds the momentum going into Wolves, which should be a win, and then hopefully Burnley and Leeds we win, and we get 12 from 12 and we're looking really good again, and people are saying we don't need to buy players, which creates a debate in itself. We do need to buy players, but 12 points from 12 would be bloody fantastic. But the mixed messaging is a problem. I still think as we approach 2026 that the football club itself is just massively confusing. I was thinking this yesterday. You know, I really want Amorim to do well. I think many of us do. We really want to get behind him. But I think he's becoming more of a company man, to be honest with you. I think he's towing the line so much that he's making himself look foolish. And that's just a small example of multiple comments that he's making over this season, similarly to Ten Hag in his second season, because there's a lack of clarity from his employers. I don't get how you can keep saying we're sticking to the plan, and then in the same interview say, my plan isn't going to work because I've got to be realistic. I'm not going to get the time and the money to build the team. And that confuses me. And then you get breaking news like this coming out, which I had read before. Fabrizio Romano, Manchester United have recalled Toby Collier from his loan at West Brom. He's already returned to have treatment, but the club has now decided he won't be going back. So we're pulling Collier back to cover the midfield for the rest of the season. So a player that we loaned in the summer to go off for a year is now back in January after not an amazing loan deal to cover the midfield. And you think, where are we heading as a football club then? Like what is it we are trying to do? Because every message you send out, you contradict it within 6 months. So Collier's going out on loan because he's not part of the plans. And then in January, he's coming back because we're looking at the midfield and going, we're a bit short. And I'm like, I like Collier. I want him to do well. But if he was good enough, he wouldn't have gone on loan. And now he's coming back because we're sending a message that we might not do something in January. So it's sort of like these mixed messages all the time. And I you know, one thing I would say I would like from this football club, and I've been saying it for a very long time, is I look at the German clubs, the Dortmunds and the Munichs. They have a CEO, they have a sporting director, they have a coach. They all talk. They all talk. They all talk publicly, consistently, and regularly about what they're doing and what they're trying to do. I don't Omar Barada may as well just piss off. Like, you know, he may as well piss off and stay in his office and do his emails, because he never says anything that makes me think he knows anything about Man United. He just speaks the same shit that Woodward did, the same shit that Arnold did. We need a bloody vision. What is the vision of the football club? Like, you know, obviously winning games is great, but I don't even know what we're meant to be doing this season. I don't even know what the aim is this season. So Jim Radcliffe has said 3 years for Amorim, but what? 3 years doing what? I mean, have we got to be in the Champions League this year? Do we have to be in Europe at all? Is there a certain brand of football you're looking for? I mean, look, I don't like watching Delot move from one side of the pitch to chuck a bloody crap throw-in, by the way. Rory Delap's throw-ins weren't just throwing them long. They were thrown in at a certain trajectory that they looked like a cross. He could throw them in a way that they didn't loop. He actually threw them at like a straight level that they were like a cross. Delot just throws it in like a bloody balloon. If I was the CEO, it's not the CEO, if I was Sir Jim Radcliffe, that would piss me off. I would be like, yeah, I know Brentford do it and I know Arsenal do it, but it's boring. I'm not bought this club to watch that shit. But there isn't a stylistic brief. There isn't a target brief. I mean, what is it we're trying to achieve? So I would love to see some of that, because I do feel bad for Ruben Amorim that he just constantly contradicts himself about we've got a plan. We, you know, if we don't buy players in January, it's because we've got a plan. And then 2 minutes later he's saying, well, my plan's not going to work. I've got to be realistic about my formation. It's not going to work. I'm not going to get the money. So the plan is to basically be the person you're not meant to be on a limited budget. And if that's the plan, tell us that's the plan, because we're all a little bit confused, I think, at the moment. So yeah, look, in relation to what Fabrizio has said about Neves and Conor Gallagher, I just think that highlights the fact that we are capable of signing those players, but the messaging is we don't want to panic. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that, but it'll probably be later in the window. In relation to Yan Diamonde, some people are getting very excited about him because he plays for the Ivory Coast, and there's been an Instagram post involving Ahmad and Yan. Fabrizio has been asked about it and said, look, he's a player on Man United's list that they like and admire. We know that Ruben Amorim would love to bring in a winger because obviously he didn't get Semenyo. In fact, there's a quote I can give you from Amorim from the press conference. But look, in relation to Diamonde, I know a lot more about the Bundesliga than I did 6 months ago. He only signed for Leipzig in the summer. So he's not a Leipzig player that they're even looking to sell, certainly not in January. He's had a reasonably good season at Leipzig. However, he's very, very raw. Like, if you buy him, I don't think he's the right player for Man United this summer. What I'm saying is, I don't think he's the right player for Man United. I don't think we need another kid coming to Manchester United to be developed. So I don't think he's the right player for Man United. But even if we did, it can't happen till the summer anyway. So, you know, that's the latest on him. But if we're going to start getting excited about kids again, I think we're going to make the same mistake we keep doing, which is we bring them in, we get really excited, they're not the finished article, and we call them shit and don't nurture them, which is, you know, seems to be a regular occurrence. But this is what Amorim had to say about a winger on the left who can use his right foot. He says, I think we need that in the future, but it's not easy. Even it's not just to play as a winger, but to have Brian with the right foot more direct. I think we need that in our squad. We play more with Mace and Cunha in there. They are 10s, they are not wingers. So I think it's a position that in the future we can look at. So it seems to me that Amorim is very much a guy that likes to use wingers who invert, which is probably why he uses Delot there over Dorgu, because Dorgu is a left footer, isn't he? So he wants a right footer on the left and he wants a left footer on the right. And obviously with Ahmad, he's got that. And on the left-hand side, he wants someone else who can do it. Look, it's personal preference. I just think that as a striker, you want the natural cross, and as a defender, you don't want to defend a natural cross. A left-footed player on the left crossing the ball, a right-footed player on the right crossing the ball is a harder cross to defend than somebody who cuts back in and crosses it the other way. But a lot of coaches like it because they're more of a goal threat. If they cut inside, they can shoot better than they can on the right. So, look, swings and roundabouts. If there's one football club I would say should have natural wingers, it's Manchester United. That's what I sort of grew up on. And I think about Giggs on the left and Beckham on the right. And there's many other examples as well. That natural cross is a thing of beauty. And it's something that we've made extinct at this football club. But look, this goes back to what we were talking about. Ruben Amorim is the manager. He's probably done this at Sporting. Like, he's playing a system that Man United has never played. So if you're going to bring him in, give him the players. And it's just another example, isn't it? You might not like the formation, you might not like the system, but he hasn't even got a left-sided player to suit his system. He hasn't. His system's very much about width, and he hasn't got a left-sided player that can play his system. And that is abysmal after over a year in charge, that there are so many holes in his system that he has to say, I know I've spent a year talking about values and principles and how I won't change them, but a year down the line, I've got to be realistic. The money and time isn't there to build my system. So I've got to adapt. So basically, what Man United have done to Ruben Amorim in a year is basically the equivalent of Pep Guardiola coming in and saying, I play tiki-taka football, and a year after going, I can't play tiki-taka football because they haven't got the players. So basically, I've got to change myself. And that's never a good message. If you brought Pep in and after a year he had to change and play counter-attacking Jose ball because he hadn't brought in the players, what was the point? And I think that's a very good example. Like that's what Amorim's basically said last night. I've got to get realistic. My system is not going to work here because I haven't got the money and I haven't got the time. So Man United have recruited a guy with a system and he can't use it. So again, we're adapting a manager to the players instead of adapting players to the manager. And what I mean by that is adapting players to the manager means selling players and bringing new players in that suit him. And we've done this every single time since we sacked Sir Alex. The manager has to adapt to the players. And we know these players aren't good enough. They're not reliable. They're bottlers. They're light switch FC. So we burn another manager getting them to adapt to the shit instead of supporting the manager. And it's so frustrating. But I think it's a huge statement. Also, just a little bit on Xerxes from The Athletic. A loan with an obligation is on the table via intermediaries from Roma for Xerxes. He wants to join Roma, but United would want to wait until after the AFCON. No club-to-club talks have yet taken place. Well, that sort of fits in with what we were saying before. Now, this is what Amorim had to say about if this squad is good enough to finish top four. Now, I haven't read this quote. I just saw it. It got put in my list to talk about on the show. Because I want to know, actually, this morning, I want to know what your thoughts on this. Are we good enough to finish top four? And actually, can we just say, are we good enough to get Champions League football? Because I actually think that question's a bit shit for Amorim. Because top four, what does top four even mean? I know it means top four, but like, it's top five, really. And it's like, the question really is, are Man United good enough to get a Champions League spot? It could be top five. It might be top four, but it could be top five. So I think the question should have been, are we good enough to get Champions League football? So let me know your thoughts. But this is what Ruben Amorim had to say. Now, considering I don't know what our target for the season is, and it would be nice to know what our target for the season is, it's very interesting when you ask the manager halfway through the season, because he should know. We are halfway through the season. Are we good enough to get top four? The manager should be able to answer that question, set the target, or say it is the target, but it's going to be very difficult. So this is what he had to say. He said, I think it's hard to talk about that. I think what I can say is that we have potential to do more. And I think I can do more with the team and I can help the team to be better. That I can say. If it's top four, I think it's different in our club. Everything around our club is not so simple as we have the talent to reach that. There is so much more than that in the team. So the only thing I can say is that if we have the full squad, I think I can help them to play better and I think we can be better in the future. Now, that's English, so we shouldn't need a translation, but I don't really know what he's saying because I don't think it's hard to talk about whether this squad isn't good enough to get for top four. Look, the honest answer is, if I'm the manager of Man United and I get asked that question, I know there has to be a political answer. Absolutely. Of course there does. You don't want to say, yeah, we're good enough to get it, and then you don't get it, because then it makes you look bad. But then that's being brave. And I think there are managers that would look at it and go, yeah, I'm willing to say that. But you don't want to say we're not good enough to get through it, because then, you're basically downing tools and admitting defeat. But I look at that league table and are we good enough to get top 4? My answer would be this. When you look at the Premier League this year, it's very competitive. And you look at the points we could have won, we would already be in the top 4. So the honest answer is, are we good enough to get top 4? We have to believe that we are, because we could be there already. And the important thing in the second half of the season is that we don't make the mistakes of the first half. We become more consistent and more willing to win games that we should be winning. And then we'll see where we are at the end of the season. But my honest answer is, we're already good enough to be top 4 based on what I've seen this season so far. We just need to be better. And that's how I would answer it, because you're not committing to it. But the truth is, we are 3 points off 4th place, and we've taken 1 point from our last 6 and 2 points from our last 9 at home. So we are good enough to be in the top 4. Doesn't mean you have to believe we will get it, but based on the Premier League so far, we could be in the top 4. So you're only look, in another Premier League season, I think we'd do well to be in the top 8. But as we are right now, I think I would offer that positivity. I mean, look, you beat Newcastle tonight. We will be joint 4th. We've then got Wolves, Burnley and Leeds. We're going into 4 very good games. I would like to see a little bit of oomph from the club, I'm certainly willing to give it. I think, we've got a great opportunity. Now, of course, I don't walk into any game, expecting United to do something, because that's the biggest mistake you can make. But we should, I think we should be going for. I think this season has been very strange in relation to how open it is, and there is an opportunity there for Manchester United. Of course, I'd add the cherry on the cake and say, if I owned the football club, I'd look at that league table, I'd look at a couple of areas of improvement and think top 4 is very much possible. So we'll see. GGMU says, do you mean to say we are better than Chelsea and Villa? Yeah, but that's not how it works, mate. That's not how it works. I mean, look, I don't know how old you are, I don't know how much football you watch, but that's not how it works. Just because Arsenal are better than us doesn't mean they'll finish above us in the league. They should do, but it doesn't mean they will. And I think Chelsea and Villa, well, we've beaten Chelsea. Villa beat us, but apparently we were unlucky. But what Chelsea and Villa do over 38 games, they might mess it up. They might get injuries. Villa have got to play on Thursday night for the last 3 months of the season. So a league table isn't about whether you're better than somebody else. It's about what you do in the 37 games and what they do in the 37 games. So are we good enough to be in the top 4? Well, I would argue that we already should be. We're not in the top 4 because we didn't beat Chelsea and Villa. We're not in the top 4 because we didn't beat Everton at home. We drew with West Ham at home. We drew with Bournemouth at home. They're the games that, we didn't need to beat Chelsea and Villa to be in the top 4. I don't know where they've dropped their points, but we should have another 6 easy. Chip says, the problem with inverted wingers is Amorim's system is you don't have fullbacks overlapping, so you don't get some same space to cut in. That's why the position is so demanding in this system. You need to be really great one-on-one, says Chip. I think that's a great point, by the way. A lot of teams do use inverted wingers, like Mo Salah, who is left-footed on the right, and then you get a Trent or a Bradley overlapping with the natural cross. We don't have that. We have an inverted fullback winger who has no one running past them. It's a very good point. We won't sign anyone in January, says Andy Atherton. Owners with ambition would sign a Gallagher Neves in January and a Wharton Stiller in the summer. If Bruno stays, it's over, says Andy. Well, the Athletic reference again, basically, I don't know, maybe it's Christmas and they've just asked AI to create an article, because they basically said Anderson's a priority, Wharton's a priority, and Baleba could be a priority. And I thought, you know what? I mean, tell me something I don't know. I mean, and also, I think if there's one thing we've learned over the last couple of days is that Man United, sadly, we've changed in the transfer market. And I mentioned this on Christmas Eve. We've changed in the transfer market. I always believe that when Man United go public on a player, there's a very big chance we're going to get them. However, increasingly under Ineos, they've made that not a certainty. You know, you think about Liam Delap, you think about Gyökeres, you think about Baleba, and now you think about Semenyo. Publicly, we've gone for them. You know, Romano and Ornstein have reported that we're going for them, and we've not got any of them. So, I think there was a time where you might hear Man United's big priority in the summer is Elliot Anderson, and they're going to go all out to get him, and that's great. But as Grump says, it's just all PR, because you look at it and you go, well, I'm sure Elliot Anderson is a priority, but Semenyo was a priority. He's now going to wear a light blue, not red. So I don't really have any confidence about who our priorities are, because I think I'd rather know who option 4 is, because there's more likely that we're going to get them. Happy Christmas, Mark. Hope you and the family had a wonderful time, says Jack. And to you, Jack. Yeah, look, I really love the period between Christmas and New Year. It's a time to just chill out. You know, the lights are still up. Play with your toys if you got any. And watch a bit of football now. So yeah, we had a really good day yesterday, and I'm looking forward to the next few days as well, heading into 26. But you know, very much focused on the football today because we've got a massive game tonight, and I just want to see something to celebrate tonight. You know, I want to see something to work on. But even if we won our next 4 games, I still don't think I'd be convinced. I'd be excited, but I don't think I'd be convinced, because I still don't know that. I just don't know what we're trying to achieve. I think that's the biggest thing, and I'll keep saying that. MVP, not MVP, PVR, performance, vision, results. You can get the results, but where's the performance and where's the vision? You mean to say we're better than done that one from GGMU? Problem with inverted wingers, done that, Chip, very good. Ray Carl Brown Amori's back, absolute legend. Hope you had a good Christmas, Ray. He says, morning, another manager, another one that has to adjust. We're not changed under Ineos, just different people take, you know what, taking the piss. Exactly. Yeah, look, if you're tuning in a little bit late, Amorim in his press conference has basically said that playing his system is going to take time and money that he doesn't have, so he's got to get realistic and adapt. So we've basically got the manager of Man United, who has spent a year telling us about his principles and values and how he won't change them, a year down the line with a horrific win ratio, saying, I'm not going to be able to build my perfect 3-4-3. So I've got to adapt. So again, we're a year into a project and our manager's abandoning it in many ways. I know he's adapting it. It's not, abandoning is a bit harsh, but he's basically just said publicly, I'm not being backed. So I've got to adapt with what I've got. And the reason he's got to adapt is because if you look at that Europa League final, how many of those players that started that game are still at the football club? And the reality is most of them. So we've got another manager, like Ten Hag before him, who came into this football club with a vision and a style that will never be implemented, because we have an ownership that will never back a manager properly, because they get so panicky about removing players and how much that's going to cost, and replacing them and how much that's going to cost. Which is why they love the idea of keeping people like Harry Maguire and Casemiro, because it's cheap. It's cheap. They don't cost anything to keep. Their wage is already being paid. Might be a silly wage, but it's a lot cheaper than getting rid of them and replacing them with a 30, 40 million pound player. So, you know, and we talk about like consistency and a future and availability. And I don't know. Ethan Campbell says they're not cheap. Well, Ethan, you didn't listen. You jumped in too quick with your typing. They are cheap. If I'm already paying Casemiro and Harry Maguire £500,000 a week, I'm already paying it. It's on the books. It's going through the bank. The shareholders are aware of it. It's already on there. So if I renew them, I'm not really changing anything, because it's been on there for the last 2 or 3 years. It's an expense that we're used to paying. If I get rid of them, okay, I'm saving £500,000 a week, but I'm going to take up at least a half of that on 2 new players' wages. All right, well, I'm saving 250 grand a week. Well, you're not, because those 2 players are going to cost you about 70 million quid. So it's cheaper to keep players that you've already got. We've been doing it for years. It's a Glazeronomic tactic. You keep shit because it's cheaper than replacing it. You make a manager adapt to what you've got because it's cheaper than actually backing him and buying players. That's what we look to do. Aeus says, I think Glinios may now a plan with Amorim. Play any shit formation other than 3-4-3 because you won't get new players you want. Get us anything good this season and leave at the end of the season. I think he's here for the long term. Glinios out, says Breezy United. Hope you're doing well. Your opinion on Lacey and Fletcher, also when Tyler, says Rajaf. I will always back young players, Rajaf. Whether it's Yoro, Dorgu, Heaven, Lacey, Fletcher, I always will back young players because I think it's a really difficult job. And I also know that they're never going to be the finished article. But there is no patience at the football club. So I don't think we're in an environment to bring young players in. And even if like Lacey played really well for a couple of months, I think people would say he's amazing. But if he had a bad month, they'd go, he's shit, he's not ready. So I don't think we have the environment or culture or patience to nurture young players at the moment. Dreadnought says, personally, I don't think anybody should be allowed to own a club unless they put 10% of their worth into the club for transfers. Interesting concept. Paul says, I have tickets for the Fulham game, 1st of Feb, hoping for a new signing and a bit of hope for the rest of the season. Merry Christmas. Well, enjoy, Paul. Hopefully that'll be a 3-pointer. Tab says, in the interview you had with Ben Jacobs yesterday, he said moving on from PSR FFP to squad cost ratio, 1 minute in the video and right before the end of the video. What does that entail? Glazers out plus 51. I haven't really read loads about it, and obviously we have Ben Jacobs on most weeks, so we'll do a section on it next time where he can explain it in more detail. Essentially, the new rules that are coming in should make it easier for Manchester United, but ultimately, I think that it's not impossible for Man United to spend money anyway under FFP and PSR. It's not like Man United could spend £300 million tomorrow, but would we spend £300 million tomorrow? I think if Man City could spend £300 million tomorrow, they probably would. If Chelsea could, they would. But with Manchester United, I don't think the problem ever is. Like, as many people have said, Ineos could sponsor Old Trafford tomorrow, and that would be another 10, 20 million pounds a year coming in, which allows you to buy a player. There are ways that Man United could manipulate things to get money in the same way that Chelsea has. It's not about whether FFP or PSR or the new rules help us or not. It's about a willingness to spend money. And that's always been the problem. They will spend money to a certain point, but they won't do it obsessively. So until we've got owners that are just obsessed with making Man United the best club in the world and finding ways to get money into the club, I'm not massively excited about, oh, there might be a way that we can spend another £100 million a year, because ultimately we're a business and that Glazers don't run us like that. It's my 30th birthday tomorrow, says Ross. Well, happy birthday for tomorrow. A positive result for tonight for Manchester United would be a good early birthday present for me. Any advice for my 30s, says Ross. I don't live life like that, Ross. I've had people and friends who didn't make 40, so I think you've just got to live life and enjoy it, whether you're in your teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. You know, I think most people would say that. It's about, enjoying the time you have and not dwelling on the number. Merry Christmas, Mark. My opinion is we need attacking wing-backs and 2 to 3 disciplined centre midfielders to play Amorim ball. So until he has those players are available to him, the owners are to blame for appointing him, says Andy. 100%, 100%. Paul Dignam, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much for joining. Henry says, the match today is an audition for life without Bruno. He will not be here forever. We need to start thinking about that, says Henry. Imagine if we win today with Casemiro and Martinez in the midfield who just play disciplined. I mean, that would be amazing. What were your thoughts on Amorim's comments on Mainu? I'm just about to talk about that, Rajaf. Interested in who starts tonight? Martinez has to, says Totally Healthy. Yes, you can check out the preview, and I completely agree with you. Ibrahim says, Lucas says, breaking, Man United sacked Ten Hag. Hope you have a great Christmas, pal. If they ain't going to start next season, don't buy, says Robert McCormack. Could you wish a happy birthday to my dad, Paul, from Hong Kong? We love your channel, says The Interceptor. Happy birthday to Paul. Hope you're having a good Christmas. And Emily Derry's in the house. Hope you had a good Christmas, Emily. She says, no surprise, Amorim is struggling. The lack of research is astounding. They will only give him so much. And the finances and proper expertise clearly aren't forthcoming at this point. It is baffling how a manager a year down the line is saying, I'm not going to get the backing in time to play my system. Why bring him in the first place? I mean, I would rather have brought Amorim in than Thomas Frank or Gareth Southgate, but at least they play a 4-3-3. You know, I don't want either of those people as a Man United manager, but, you know, what's the point in buying a Ferrari if no one can drive it, you know? You may as well get a bike. Bruno starts, helped the win, no argument, but we have never built a team because we're so dependent on him. I think this is a real test. Can we ace this? I'm excited about tonight, Seth. I'd love us to win, mainly for the 3 points, but also I'd love us to win without Bruno against a good side. I think it would send a big message. It was inevitable. Ashworth's choice of manager was wrong, but his strategy was logical, says Keel. Pranav, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much for getting your badge in. Very concerning. Happy Christmas, Goldbridge, says Ian O'Connell. Thoughts on Paddy McGuinness on the recent overlaps, says Rajaf. I don't have any thoughts. I mean, I'd need more than that, Rajaf. I don't know what thoughts I'm meant to have. Brett Dowell, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much. And he's been a member for 38 months. Up from South Africa to watch my first game today. I hope I won't regret this. Merry Christmas, Marks, his name. Oh, it'd be a great atmosphere at Old Trafford tonight. You know, we're very fortunate. You know, I think it's a disgrace that it's Boxing Day and there's only one Premier League game. I mean, I must admit, I'm really excited about our game, and I don't know how everybody else feels about it, but I was like, woke up this morning and I was like, oh, I'll get to watch a couple of games today. I mean, no Premier League game until 8 o'clock. Thankfully, it's us, but I think it's disgusting. I think the Premier League are an absolute disgrace. An absolute disgrace. And again, football fans just stay quiet on it. But I think this is erosion again of our game. It's the PGMOL, week in, week out, ruining the game. And now we've got no Boxing Day games because the money men don't want it to happen. It's a disgrace, really. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Mark, to you and your family from sunny land down under. Hope next year much better than this one when it comes to Manchester United's BH Ultras. Thank you, Merry Christmas to you. What about that 500 million sponsorship deal, says Old Trafford? Oh, you know, I forget his name. The Finland guy who wanted to buy Man United is back again with a Christmas Day story about wanting to pump sponsorship into Manchester United. I'll be honest with you, I don't know the person, and maybe his intentions are good, but I'd rather he use that money to try and find a way to get rid of the Glazers and Ineos. The last thing I'd be doing as a Man United fan is pumping money into the club for them to spend. If he thinks Sir Jim Radcliffe and the Glazers are the answer, then I'm sorry, I wasn't excited by that story at all yesterday. If I had £400 million of sponsorship, I wouldn't put it anywhere near the Glazers. I think that's really naive to think, oh, I just want to pump money in Man United. No. Don't put your money anywhere near Man United with the Glazers in charge because they'll be taking a big chunk of it. So, you know, anybody with any brain knows that the future for Man United is brighter without the Glazers at the helm. So why would I get excited about a guy that wants to pump sponsorship money into a Glazers-owned Man United? I'm not. I feel different when the manager with a simpler strategy can get more from the players. McLaren, Carrick and Fletcher team could work, says Keel. Victoria says, it is not because he does not have the funding for a 3-4-3, it's because it's a low-tier formation with limited patterns and dynamism that uses 5 defenders, hence his 30% win ratio, says Victoria. How are we feeling about Roy Keane on Cobby? This is Old Trafford, I don't know. I don't know what we're talking about. How many players in our team have a history of being in a title race or top 4, bar Casemiro? How can someone expect to finish top 4 without quality, says GGMU. If you could take 3 players from Newcastle, who would you take, says Lazy Parker? I mean, I'm tempted to just take the midfield, Joel Linton, Tonali and Bruno G, if I'm being honest. But look, no, I do like Anthony Gordon. I really like Anthony Gordon. And I do like their centre-back. Tau, is it? So, but look, their midfield is a lot better than ours. It'd be interesting. I'm actually, obviously, I mean, by the time it gets to 8 o'clock tonight, let's be honest, it's Boxing Day. And I know we've got people coming round for drinks this afternoon. So I'll have had some drink and I'll be very animated because I'll be very excited anyway. But I am looking forward to the game anyway. I think it's a real test for us. Victoria's back, says, I was correct. Anything I told you about the 3-4-3 and Amorim's delusion about tactics and their ineffectiveness was correct. I feel vindicated. I mean, look, Merry Christmas. I mean, I did say this to you a couple of weeks ago. You have been proved right. So, you know, I can't, well, at the moment, as Ricky always says, you know, a clock can be right twice in a day. And every opinion in football seems to have its day in the sun. So maybe in 3 months' time, you'll be there and we'll be saying we were right to say back him and give him the season. I mean, I still believe, I'm not speaking for you, Victoria, but I still believe that Amorim must be given the season. Even if that ship is sinking and we're just going to watch it sink to the bottom of the ocean, I still believe he should be given the season. But look, some of the things really do concern me. If the manager himself is saying I'm not going to get the time or the players to do my system, he's going to walk out with a very big excuse. We're not even good enough for the Conference League or the Carabao, says OTG. Thank you very much for that. Just on, are we good enough to get Champions League football? 73% of you said no. There we go. Let us know if you're not watching live what your thoughts are on that. I was asked about what he said about Mainu. Got nearly 10,000 watching this morning. Thanks everyone for watching. Please do smash a like on the video because we've not got 1,000 likes and we've got 9,200 watching. So please smash a like. Let me tell you what he said about Mainu then. Look, Ben Jacobs said yesterday, if you didn't watch the video, Mainu wants to leave on loan and has Napoli on mind. Amorim said this about Mainu leaving Man United. This is from the press conference that came out last night. If we don't recruit anyone, it's difficult to let Mainu go. We're short of players. Even with a full squad, it's not enough to cope with what can happen here. We're a club with a lot of responsibility and we have to win every game. There are no excuses. So it'll be difficult for someone to leave the club if we don't find a replacement. So I liked that from Amorim, to be honest with you, because it sort of feeds in with what he was saying about I can't build my system because I haven't got the time and the players. And then, can Mainu go? Not if we don't get a replacement. Now, if I'm Mainu, I'm reading that and I'm saying, you know what? That isn't an indication of, you know, I'm massively part of his plans. I mean, he did say this, to be fair. Mainu will have the opportunity that he has all the time. He's played in different positions. He can play, if you play with three, he can play like we did in the last game. He could play where Mount did. So in the future, he's going to be the future of Man United. That is my feeling. So you just need to wait for each chance and everything can change in football in 2 days. So look, there is a positive from Amorim there. He basically saying that Mainu is the future of Man United. He's just got to wait. But he's also saying he can't go unless I get a replacement. Now, if I'm Mainu today, I'm listening to those comments with a calf strain, and I'm going, you want me to wait, but I've basically been waiting a year. What people forget is it's not just the last 5 months that he's not used Mainu. It was the last 5 months of last season as well. He's not used him in a year. So I would say, okay, I have been patient. I have waited, and you won't use me. You don't use me. So what are we waiting for here? And also, you've said I can go if you can get a replacement. So what's the message? Let's just agree to part ways and get a bloody replacement in. I think the best solution is that we stop labouring the same point. He asked to go at the end of August because he obviously felt he wasn't going to get minutes. And at the end of December, he was right. He's asking to go again, and we're going, well, you've got a future here. And I think this time we've got to let him go. He's on the fence about Mainu, says Totally Alfie. I don't think he's on the fence. Actions speak louder than words. He doesn't use him unless he absolutely has to. So I think that Mainu needs to keep pushing for the move because he needs to play somewhere that he's trusted. And in fairness to him, he's better off going to a club that wants him for the last 6 months of the season than sticking with Amorim, who clearly doesn't. But the only way that's going to happen is if the board do their job. I think Amorim wants Mainu to go. And I think Mainu wants to go. But he can't do it unless he gets a replacement. And I said this a couple of weeks ago. It's not dissimilar to Anthony and Rashford and Garnacho. If Amorim doesn't want a player, he moves them on, regardless of age or aura or status in the fan base. The club are responsible for this, not Amorim. So I think Amorim will let Mainu go for a better replacement. But the club have to provide the replacement. And I think what Amorim's saying is, if I don't get a replacement, I can't just let him go. Look at the squad. I can't be in a situation where I've got 3 midfielders. So he can go, but I need a replacement. And Mainu's like, I want to go. So it's on the club, isn't it? If they don't bring a replacement in, then he can't go. and we have to bring a replacement in. But I think the club are just hoping that he's going to get some minutes and Amorim's going to change his mind. But then you're in the hands of, is Amorim, the sort of guy that wants to do that? Maybe Collier's the replacement. Yeah, well, Collier's coming back. Which, look, I like Toby Collier. But if he was part of Amorim's plans, he never would have loaned him in the first place. So, but look, first and foremost, it's about winning tonight. I know not everyone can join in because it's Christmas. You might be away, you might be out. Boxing Day parties are a thing. But we'll be having our own Boxing Day party tonight at 7:30, 8 o'clock kickoff. Victoria says, he should be given the season. Just play 4-3-3. That's all I ask. This is an ethos thing of our club. Thank you very much. We're in Emperor's New Clothes Vortex, promising there's a plan and vision with milk and honey just round the corner. We're being left behind as a result, says WGVF. Look, in summary, very excited about tonight. Give Amorim the season. Give him a midfielder in January. Same as what we've been saying for weeks. But I think it's concerning when a manager of Man United won't commit on whether we're good enough for top four, even though we know we are, because we've already dropped points that would have put us in the top four. He's talking about sticking to the plan. We have a plan, we have a vision, we have a plan. We don't know what that plan and vision is, but more importantly, in the same interview, he's saying, my plan and vision can't work because I won't get the time and the players to do it. So it's just a very confused message all the time. And that's the bad thing about these press conferences. If a manager walks into a press conference and they don't really know what the plan and vision is, they will trip themselves up no matter how much PR you feed them. The different questions you get will lead to, well, that's contradictory to what you said 2 minutes ago. And I think that's why I have sympathy with Amorim at the moment. I think the truth is he hasn't got the players to stick to the vision he wants to stick to. And having to adapt undermines him in a way. Hope you're well. Had a great Christmas, says Daniel Thompson. You too, Daniel. Merry Christmas. Thank you very much for that. Bring back the 4-4-2, says King. I don't know whether I'd go that far. Cheers from the US. Looking forward to the game tonight, says Justin. Well, I'm very much looking forward to the game tonight, and I'm looking forward to spending it with all you. Emily Derry says the club are waiting for Amorim to change his mind. This is the guy who has persisted with Bruno and Casemiro in the midfield all season. Yeah. Is That's Football covering any matches, says Grump? Not today, because there isn't any today, but we are back tomorrow with a very busy schedule. That's Football is having Boxing Day off, but That's Football is back tomorrow with 12:30, 3 o'clock, 5:30. It's a very busy day tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to it, actually. Get back to work. Anyway, it's all about United Stand today. And make sure you smash a like and subscribe. We are back at 6 o'clock live, I think, for Countdown to Kickoff. It will be 6 o'clock because I'm live at 7:30. So match day tonight. Enjoy your day, whatever you're doing. I think Maud's is doing the road trip at 2. And then, yeah, all action tonight. Stay sober. Stay safe. I'll speak to you all in a bit. Take care.